Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the trainings of the Open Mode project. This is session 7. We are going to speak about the farming processes on the raft. Welcome. We are going to divide this session in 4 main points. The first, we are going to explain the species that can be farmed in a raft. Secondly, we will speak about the factors that affect to the farming methods. Third, we are going to develop the mussel farming procedures, and fourth, we will introduce the oyster farming procedures. What kind of species can we harvest in a raft? Well, first of all, and the main one, the most harvested in the world on the raft structure, is the mussel. Possibly 99% of the rafts that are installed in Galicia and in the majority of the world have mussels hanging on it. But also there are some specific rafts where oysters are harvested and even clams. In Galicia there are some rafts that are used to harvest clams. In the case of oysters and clams, there is more work required to be done on the structure. So the structure in some cases should be adapted, changing the geometry or introducing some corridors or some additional complementary structures, cranes, and so on. But these 3 species can be harvested easily in a raft. There are other potential species that can be harvested because they accept this kind of intensive farming conditions, as for example macroalgae, urkins, scallops, and some others, but they are not intensively harvested in rafts nowadays. The main difference between harvesting mussels, oysters, clams, or other species is the spacing between the ropes and also the spacing between the joists, because in the end this will mark the distance between the ropes, so the competition for the food of each of the species. Well, now we are going to speak about the factors that affect to the farming procedures. So how the farmer is doing the farming procedures and why. Well, there are different ideas, different concepts that may affect to this. First, we need to consider the environment. The rope length, for example, is going to be conditioned by the water depth. And the distance between the ropes in both directions is going to be conditioned also by the amount of phytoplankton. If we have a significant amount of phytoplankton, we can have closer ropes than if we have a low amount, because then the mussel will grow appropriately. We may need a perimeter net if there are ducks or predator fishes, and we don't need it if they are not present. And we need also to choose the harvesting timings depending on the amount of nutrients in the water and also the possibility that the toxins appear. For example, if it is expected that in 10 days toxins will arrive, it's possible that the farmer extract the mussels earlier than his initial planning. The second point, the market trends have also an influence on how the farmer will harvest. In some markets, it is possible a small size mussel is more demanded or it is better paid than a significant size mussel. So this will condition the procedures and the timing of the farming methods of the farmers. Another condition is also the equipment available. In some locations where the sector is more atomized and the number of rafts or long lines is more reduced, the boats are smaller. So the farmer is conditioned by the size of his boat or crane. Even if he doesn't have a crane, it will be conditioned by the force of his hands. This means that the farmer cannot have a rope longer than 4, 5, 6 meters because the weight is too high, too significant. Also, if the farmer is going to sell in fresh or for canned, possibly the conditions of the mussel that he needs to bring to the industry are different, so he may need a different equipment. Finally, the legislation is also relevant. In some cases, for example, in some countries, the labor laws may have an influence on the farming procedures. There are some things that are forbidden or that cannot be done on a structure, or also the licenses that can be granted to the floating structures. In Galicia, for example, the maximum size is 540 square meters. In other regions may be different, and this is affecting to the conditions of the farmer. In Galicia, for example, the rope has a maximum length of 12 meters. So this is conditioning the length of the ropes and the weight, the maximum capacity of the cranes they have. So all of these factors need to be considered to define the precise farming procedure of the farmers in each region. Well, we are going to speak about the mussel farming, and we will start introducing let's say, the first system, which is the shortest. It takes between 9 and 12 months. and it is also the simplest way because we grow the muscle on the rope, hanging it only once. This may begin in two different ways, or we hang the rope and the muscle seed gets stuck to it, or we scrape from a rock the muscle seed and we put it on the rope with the tubing procedure, with a sock. But in both ways, we have finally the spud, the seed fixed to the rope and growing for a period of 9 up to 12 months, depending on the location. When the muscle has already grown, we harvest it, we declamp it and classify it, we bag it, and if required, we send it to depuration or to sterilization. Well, the farming system with unfolding is longer. It will take approximately 1.5 years, 18 months, but this depends also on the location. So this is an approximate period for Galicia. It starts exactly like the previous one, using wild spud or a spud that is captured by the rope collectors. We do the seed tubing and we hang the rope. The rope is growing approximately for 9 months, and after this we collect it and we declamp it, but we don't pack it already. The declamped muscle is already tubed again to a rope, so we hang it and we have a second growing period that also takes approximately 9 months. Why are we doing this? Because if we don't declamp it and thin the ropes, the muscles are too concentrated and it's difficult that they grow appropriately without falling down from the rope. Somehow the density of muscles is too high and we need to reduce it. After this second growing period, we harvest the muscle, we declamp it, we do the grading, we do the bagging, and later we can send it to depuration or to sterilization in the case that is for fresh food or for processed food. Well, starting with the first step of the mussel farming, we need to speak about the collection of the seed. There are two main ways to do this procedure. One is to collect the mussel seed, the small mussels from the rocks, naturally, scraping the rocks and obtaining it. And the second is to obtain the seed from spud collectors, so from long lines or rafts where we hang ropes and the larvae of the mussels get stuck to the rope. An example of this can be seen in the picture in the right side, how the small mussel is stuck to the rope. Using one or other procedure depends on a couple of main things. One is the legislation. In some countries it is forbidden, for example, to obtain the mussel from the rocks. In others you have both options. And the other main factor is the amount of phytoplankton in the water and also the amount of larvae. If the amount of larvae is very low, it is more complex, more difficult to use the spud collectors procedure. The step of the mussel farming process is to place the small mussels, the seed, in a rope. And the way to do it is do the procedure called tubing, using a net around the rope that we can call sock. This net is biodegradable, so after a few weeks of launching the rope with the net, it disappears. But in this moment, the mussel is already stuck to the rope. As you can see in the upper figure, the rope has some plastic sticks that facilitate that the mussel gets stuck to the rope and it doesn't fall down when progressively it grows and it has a higher weight. Once we have the mussels already in the rope, after sucking by hand or using a machine, we can already hang the rope from the joist and it starts the process of growing or pre-growing. It depends if we are doing one growth or two growths. In the figure of the left, you can see a raft in Valencia where the mussel is still small. And in the picture of the right, you can see mussel that has been extracted just to appreciate the quality during the growth process. When the mussel has reached the size adequate to be sold or to be harvested for a second time, then it's the moment of the declamping. You can see in the figures how is the declamping. A crane from the mussel boat rises in the rope that generally has between 5 and 12 meters, and using some kind of sweep, it scraps all the rope, obtaining the mussel and hosting it in a cage, in a box. Later, this box is open in the boat and we can already start processing the mussel, classifying it or bagging it. If we are following the short process, the process without unfolding, after the scrapping, we do the grading and the baggaging. If we are using the long farming process with unfolding, then after the classification of the mussel, we proceed to the second tubing and to the second harvesting period and a final declamping, finishing already the whole procedure. And as a short explanation of how the oyster is farmed in a raft, I have to say that it is a more artisan work which depends more on the oyster variety and also on the traditions of the farmer. But generally, the pre-growth of the oyster is carried out in lanterns. These lanterns are hanging from ropes, which hang from the joist. When the seed already reaches the adequate size, one of the typical procedures is to cement the oyster to the rope and hang the rope that normally may have between 20 and 100 oysters, depending on the length and the size. They are later harvested for a period between 12 and 18 months, and in some cases, the ropes are periodically extracted from the water to do what is called a sunbathing of the oyster to improve the quality of its meat and its external aspect. So this is the end of session 7, farming on the raft. I hope that you had a good time here, and we will meet in the last session, the last training, number 8. Thank you.